He was one of the most famous American songwriters of the 1800s. When he died, his body was brought from another continent and across an ocean to its final resting place. Today, we find out where his journey came to an end. Hi, I'm Aaron Killian, and welcome back to Dead, White, and Blue, the YouTube series all about the final chapters and final resting places of famous dead Americans. Today, we continue our journey through Washington, D.C.'s Oak Hill Cemetery with a look at the expiration of songwriter John Howard Payne. First, let's find out about Payne's life before death.
Penned by a true American original, Home Sweet Home is perhaps the most celebrated song by famed American writer John Howard Payne, a man whose life was colored with much more than just sentimental lyrics. Born soon after American independence, John Howard Payne spent his childhood in the bucolic woodlands of New York State until 1809, when he began his extensive career in the theater. He started as an actor in a minor New York City playhouse production, and went on to be the first American-born actor to portray Hamlet. After a brief stint touring throughout major European capitals, Payne began to pen scripts for plays and librettos for new operas with a focus on romanticizing the idea of the American countryside. This includes his most famous work, the aforementioned Home Sweet Home, which he completed in 1822. In the 1830s, after returning from his European wanderings, Payne became involved in and ultimately horrified by the violent and horrific removal of indigenous societies in the eastern United States, and went on to lobby Congress on their behalf. He spent his final years as an American consul to the country of Tunisia.
Thanks, Christopher. And if you'd like more information on becoming a Historic America intern, just visit historicamerica.org/internships. You'll find the link in the show notes. All right, let's get 6 feet deep on John Howard Payne. John Howard Payne died on April 9th, 1852 in the city of Tunis, Tunisia. The likely cause of death was heart failure. He was 62 years old. At the time of his death, Payne was in North Africa serving his second stint as American consul to Tunisia in the city of Tunis. While serving abroad, his health began to fade in the early 1850s, and he was cared for by an order of nuns known as the Sisters of Charity. Although not much is known about his cause of death, research indicates that toward the end, Payne had lost most of his upper teeth, and he suffered from a persistent oppression of the chest and a weakening of his central nervous system, so all signs point to heart failure. Although initially buried beneath a marble slab on a hill overlooking the harbor inside St. George's Protestant Cemetery in Tunis, Payne would eventually be exhumed and his remains brought back to the United States through the effort and expense of Oak Hill Cemetery founder William Corcoran, a banker and philanthropist who, as a boy, greatly admired Payne's stage work. As the story goes, while traveling past Washington, D.C.'s Ebbett House one day in 1882, Corcoran heard Payne's nostalgic song, Home Sweet Home, played by the Marine Band, and was so moved that he resolved then and there to retrieve Payne's remains. Payne was disinterred in February of 1883 and brought first to the French city of Marseille. He was then placed aboard the steamship Brigandus for transport across the Atlantic Ocean. When he arrived in New York City, Payne's Home Sweet Home earned him Macarena-level status, so his coffin was placed in a black hearse draped with an American flag and brought to the second-floor governor's room of the New York City Hall. There he lay in state for 2 days as 12,000 mourners filed by to pay their respects. His body was then brought by a train car specially donated by the head of the Pennsylvania Railroad Company to its final destination of Washington, D.C. For several weeks, Payne's coffin was kept inside Oak Hill's Renwick Chapel until June of 1883, when it was laid in state inside the original Corcoran Art Museum, today the Smithsonian's Renwick Gallery. On June 9th, the 92nd anniversary of Payne's birthday, his body was brought back to Oak Hill in a grand formal procession via a specially built hearse drawn by 6 white horses and accompanied by the Marine Band, led by John Philip Sousa. They played, you guessed it, Home Sweet Home. The list of attendees at Payne's Oak Hill reinterment ceremony was impressive. It included President of the United States Chester A. Arthur, Secretary of War Robert Todd Lincoln, along with the Secretaries of Treasury and State, Generals William Tecumseh Sherman and Winfield Scott Hancock, numerous senators, representatives, and Supreme Court justices. Amazing. That would be like the Queen and Prime Minister of Great Britain attending the funeral of Right Said Fred. I'm too sexy for my shirt. Poems were read, orations delivered, and at the high point of the 2-hour service came the unveiling of Payne's recently commissioned monument. At the close of the ceremony, his casket was laid in the ground nearby the monument as the local Philharmonic Society sung, what else? Home Sweet Home. When surveying all the pomp and circumstance surrounding Payne's reinterment, Harper's Monthly magazine perhaps summed it up best when it reported that, quote, "Never was a dead poet so famous for a single song, or so honored." The periodical continued, saying, "Except for this one song, the name of Payne would be preserved only in some biographical dictionaries and in some perishing traditions of the theater. But his song is that one touch of nature that makes the world kin. It is the frailest thread of which fame was ever spun." Payne died a bachelor with few family members and no estate to leave behind. With little business sense, he was not able to maintain the profit from his one-hit wonder songwriting career. Although most of Payne's working life was spent as an actor, playwright, and theater manager, his greatest legacy was Home Sweet Home, one of the most widely sung English-language songs of the 1800s, achieving its greatest popularity after Payne's death during the U.S. Civil War, as millions of homesick soldiers from the North and South counted it among their favorite songs. It was particularly beloved by President Abraham Lincoln, who reportedly took comfort in hearing it played after the passing of his son Willie. In the 20th century, Judy Garland would quote from the song's lyrics in the final scenes of The Wizard of Oz, saying, "There's no place like home, there's no place like home." And Mrs. Anna memorably teaches it to her royal school children in Rodgers and Hammerstein's The King and I. From the earliest days of record players up through the mid-20th century, numerous popular recordings of the song were also made by the likes of luminaries such as Harry McDonough, songstresses Elsie Baker and Vera Lynn, and the immortal crooner Bing Crosby. Now, let's see where he's buried. John Howard Payne is just inside Oak Hill Cemetery's main entrance on the east side of the ellipse. Let's go find him. Here he is. Let's have a discussion of grave importance, shall we? Located nearby the cemetery entrance, Payne's grand monument was created by New York stone carvers Moffett and Doyle. Paid for by Corcoran, Payne's Carrara marble bust sits atop a large pedestal. The bust is 1.5 times life-size and was modeled using an earlier Matthew Brady photograph of Payne. The inscription on the base of the monument reads, "Sure when thy spirit fled to realms beyond the azure dome, with arms outstretched, God's angels said, welcome to heaven's home, sweet home." A nearby marble tablet marks the location of Payne's casket. After his reinterment, Payne's bearded bust was carelessly altered when a rumor began incorrectly circulating that Payne had not worn a beard in life. This prompted Oak Hill Cemetery managers to hastily hire a local stonemason to shave off Payne's beard, only to later discover their error. At the time of its unveiling, Harper's Magazine said of Payne's monument, quote, "There are 100 monuments of distinguished men in Washington who were very conspicuous and some of whom performed great and memorable services, but no monument will be visited by a greater throng of pilgrims, and no memorial will appeal more tenderly to all of them than those of the wide wandering actor, remembered but that he wrote one song." If you like what you saw today, remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to learn more about Historic America, go to www.historicamerica.org. There, you can subscribe to us on Patreon, read our online journal, and listen to our podcast, A Place in Time. If you plan on being in the DC area or one of our other cities in the future, you can also book a tour with us. We have a diverse menu of multi-sensory tour options to choose from. All this information and more can be found in the description below. Until next time, for Dead, White, and Blue and Historic America, I'm Aaron Killian, and I'll see you inside the cemetery.